Breaking news out of Sterling Heights, where police say a husband shot his wife in her work parking lot. That shooting happened at the Pomeroy Living Center on 15 Mile near DeQuinder. Gina Vici has an update on the victim's condition and the investigation.
Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, when new information is so contradictory to what you believed that your brain literally can't process it normally. For most people, this creates confusion, sadness, maybe anger that eventually gets worked through with therapy or time. But for DeShawn Flood, that psychological break triggered something far more dangerous. Instead of processing grief or seeking help, his mind went to a dark place that most of us can't even comprehend. He started planning, not planning to leave, not planning to confront his wife, not planning to get counseling or file for divorce. He started planning murder. Think about how calculated this was. He didn't just grab a gun in a moment of rage. Remember, he was legally prohibited from owning firearms, which means he had to actively seek out a weapon. He had to make a conscious decision to arm himself, to choose violence over every other possible response to whatever those DNA results revealed. The transformation from devastated husband to would-be killer didn't happen overnight. DeShawn spent weeks carrying this information, letting it poison every interaction with his wife. Can you imagine what those final weeks were like in their home? She's coming back from work each day, probably trying to connect with him, maybe noticing that something seemed off, but having no idea that he was planning her death. He was studying her routines, learning her schedule at Michigan Rehab Services. He knew exactly when she arrived, when she left, where she parked. He was turning his intimate knowledge of her life into a weapon against her. The same familiarity that once brought them together was now being used to hunt her down. This is what makes intimate partner violence so terrifying. The perpetrator has access to everything. Your fears, your habits, your safe spaces, your daily routines. DeShawn knew that his wife felt secure at her workplace, surrounded by co-workers who cared about her. He was about to turn that sanctuary into the scene of her attempted execution. By July 29th, DeShawn had made his final decision. Whatever internal battle had been raging since those DNA results arrived, it was over. He had chosen violence. He had chosen to become the kind of person who waits in parking lots with loaded weapons, ready to destroy the woman he once promised to love and protect. But here's what I need you to understand about this case. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was premeditated attempted murder, planned and executed by someone who had weeks to change his mind, to seek help, to choose literally any other response to his pain. Instead, he chose to become a predator. What warning signs do you think his wife might have missed in those final weeks? What changes in behavior? What subtle shifts in their relationship could have alerted her to the danger she was in? Think carefully about the people in your own life. Have you ever noticed someone becoming withdrawn, obsessive, or fixated on perceived betrayals? Share your thoughts in the comments. July 29th, 2024. While his wife is inside Michigan Rehab Services, helping patients rebuild their lives, DeShawn Flood is sitting in the parking lot with murder on his mind. He's not pacing. He's not having second thoughts. He's waiting with the cold patience of a predator who has already made peace with what he's about to do. Think about the psychological horror of this moment. This woman has no idea that the person who knows her better than anyone else in the world has been transformed into her greatest threat. She's probably thinking about her patients, maybe planning what to make for dinner, completely unaware that her husband has spent hours studying this exact location, timing her movements, planning her death. DeShawn knows her schedule down to the minute. He knows which door she'll exit from, which car she'll walk toward, how long it takes her to dig her keys out of her purse. All of that intimate knowledge, the kind that comes from years of marriage, is now being weaponized against her. He's turned love into a hunting strategy, and she's walking straight into his trap. The moment she steps outside, DeShawn makes his move. This isn't a chance encounter or a coincidental meeting. This is the execution of a plan that's been weeks in the making. He approaches her with the gun already within reach, tucked into his waistband like he's done this before. The casual way he carries himself tells us everything we need to know about his mental state. He's completely committed to this violence. Now put yourself in her position for just a second. You see your husband walking toward you in a place where he has no business being. Your first thought isn't fear, it's confusion. Maybe he's here to surprise you. Maybe there's some emergency at home. The last thing your brain processes is that this person you've shared a bed with, eaten meals with, built a life with, is about to try to kill you. That moment of recognition, when she realizes what's actually happening, must have been absolutely terrifying. The person she trusted most in the world has become her executioner, and she's trapped in an open parking lot with nowhere to run and no one to help her. DeShawn reaches for his gun, and suddenly this ordinary Tuesday afternoon becomes a fight for survival. His wife sees the weapon and does the only thing she can. She tries to take cover in her co-worker's vehicle. But DeShawn isn't going to let distance or barriers stop him now. He's come too far, planned too long, committed too completely to this act of violence. He physically prevents her from closing the car door. Think about that level of determination. He's not just shooting wildly in anger. He's methodically ensuring that his target can't escape. This is execution-style thinking, the mindset of someone who has already decided that his wife needs to die and won't accept any outcome other than her death. The gunshots start. Multiple rounds fired in broad daylight outside a medical facility where people come to heal and recover. The irony is devastating. This woman spends her days helping people survive their worst moments, and now she's fighting to survive her own. Each shot that DeShawn fires is a betrayal not just of their marriage vows, but of every moment of trust and intimacy they've ever shared. This is where an ordinary person becomes a hero. The co-worker, someone who was just trying to get through another day at work, suddenly finds herself in the middle of a domestic violence attack that could easily cost her own life. She could have run, could have hidden, could have prioritized her own safety above everything else. Instead, she becomes the difference between attempted murder and actual murder. Both women manage to escape the vehicle and run toward the building, but DeShawn isn't finished. He catches up to his wife and does something that reveals just how far his rage has consumed him. He pistol whips her. This isn't just about the gunshots anymore. This is personal, intimate violence designed to inflict maximum pain and humiliation. The sound of that gun connecting with her skull, the blood, the terror in her eyes. These are the images that will haunt everyone who witnessed this attack for the rest of their lives. DeShawn has crossed every possible line, destroyed every boundary between love and hate, protection and destruction. Police arrive and take him into custody, but the damage is done. His wife is rushed to the hospital with injuries that, thankfully, aren't life-threatening.
Yeah, this is still a very active scene behind me. Take a look at this. Look at the bullet casing markings on the ground here. Sterling Heights police saying around 8 o'clock this morning they received a 911 call that a woman had been shot in the parking lot here at the Pomeroy Living Center off of 15 Mile near DeQuinder. We're told an employee was shot by her husband in the parking lot. We're told they both lived in the city of Warren and that the husband came up to his wife's employer and shot her several times. Police thankfully were able to respond to the scene within seconds. The wife was rushed to a nearby hospital where she is still alive.
Let me walk you through exactly what happened in those terrifying moments outside Michigan Rehab Services, because understanding the sequence of events reveals just how calculated and vicious this attack really was. DeShawn doesn't just pull out his gun and start shooting randomly. Every single action he takes is deliberate, methodical, designed to ensure his wife cannot escape what he believes she deserves. The first shot rings out as she's trying to close the car door. But here's what makes this so chilling. DeShawn doesn't fire once and then hesitate. He doesn't have a moment of clarity where he realizes what he's doing. Instead, he fires multiple rounds, each one a conscious decision to continue trying to kill the woman he married. His wife is trapped between the car door and DeShawn's determination to end her life. She can't fully close herself inside the vehicle. She can't run fast enough to get away. And she can't reason with someone who has already decided she needs to die. Every survival instinct she has is screaming at her to move, to hide, to fight. But she's facing someone who knows all of her weaknesses and has planned for all of her possible responses. The co-worker inside the car is witnessing an execution attempt happening right next to her, knowing that she could easily become the next target. In that moment of pure terror, both women make a decision that saves their lives. They abandon the car and run for the building. This isn't a casual retreat or a strategic withdrawal. This is two people running for their lives, knowing that every second counts. Every step could be the difference between survival and death. But DeShawn isn't going to let them escape that easily. He's invested too much in this moment, planned too carefully, crossed too many lines to just watch his wife disappear into the safety of her workplace. He pursues them with the relentless focus of someone who has already committed to murder and won't accept any other outcome. When he catches up to his wife, and the fact that he can catch up tells us how determined he is, DeShawn does something that reveals the true depth of his rage. The gunshots weren't enough. The terror wasn't enough. The public humiliation of attacking her at her workplace wasn't enough. He raises that pistol above his head and brings it down on her skull with brutal force. This is the moment when attempted murder becomes personal torture. The pistol whipping isn't about killing her quickly. It's about making her suffer, about inflicting pain that goes beyond physical damage. It's about destroying her dignity, her sense of safety, her ability to ever feel secure again. The sound of metal connecting with bone, the sight of blood, the absolute helplessness of watching someone you once loved try to destroy you. These are the images that will define this woman's trauma for years to come. DeShawn isn't just attacking her body. He's attacking her soul, her ability to trust, her fundamental belief that the world contains people who won't hurt her. But here's what DeShawn didn't count on: witnesses. Co-workers who heard the gunshots, patients inside the facility who called for help, people in the parking lot who immediately understood they were watching an attempted murder. His carefully planned execution is happening in broad daylight, with multiple people watching, recording, calling 911. The police response is swift, but those minutes between the first gunshot and the arrival of law enforcement feel like hours to everyone involved. DeShawn has time to fire multiple rounds, chase his victims, assault his wife with the weapon, and still be standing over her when officers arrive on scene. When they finally take him into custody, he doesn't resist. He doesn't try to run, doesn't attempt to justify his actions, doesn't show any remorse for what he's just done. The man who spent weeks planning this attack simply surrenders, as if the violence was just another item on his to-do list that he's now completed. The ambulance arrives to find a woman who has survived something that should have killed her. Multiple gunshot wounds, head trauma from being pistol whipped, psychological damage that will take years to heal. Yet somehow, miraculously, her injuries are not life-threatening. The doctors and paramedics who treat her that day are looking at someone who defied the odds, who survived an execution attempt by sheer luck and the intervention of a heroic co-worker. DeShawn Flood, 37 years old, is now facing the consequences of his calculated violence. 2 counts of assault with intent to murder, firearms possession by a prohibited person, 3 counts of weapons felony firearm. Each charge represents a different aspect of his crime: the planning, the illegal weapon, the multiple attempts to kill his wife. But here's what I need you to think about as we wrap up this horrific sequence of events. At what exact moment did DeShawn cross the line from being an angry husband to becoming an attempted murderer? Was it when he first got those DNA results? When he decided to get the gun? When he drove to her workplace? When he pulled the trigger the first time? Understanding that moment is crucial because it might help you recognize when someone in your own life is moving from emotional pain toward dangerous violence. Drop your analysis in the comments, but if you're not subscribed, you're missing critical discussions about recognizing these warning signs before it's too late. DeShawn Flood's arraignment on Thursday, following the attack, reveals just how seriously the legal system is taking this case. 2 counts of assault with intent to murder. That's the prosecution's way of saying they believe DeShawn fully intended to kill his wife, not just hurt her or scare her. Each count represents a separate moment when he made the conscious decision to try to end her life. But the charges don't stop there. Firearms possession by a prohibited person. This tells us that DeShawn had a criminal history that legally prevented him from owning guns. Yet somehow, he managed to get his hands on a weapon anyway. 3 counts of weapons felony firearm charges stack on top of everything else, ensuring that if convicted, he'll face serious prison time. The Macomb County Prosecutor's Office isn't treating this as a domestic dispute that got out of hand. They're treating it as what it actually was: a premeditated attempt to commit murder. The multiple charges reflect the multiple ways DeShawn violated the law, from illegally possessing the weapon to using it to try to kill his wife in broad daylight outside her workplace. The judge sets DeShawn's bond at $1 million cash or surety, and that number tells you everything you need to know about how dangerous the court considers him to be. This isn't a $100,000 bond for someone who made a mistake. This is $1 million bond for someone who planned and executed an attempted murder, someone who the court believes poses an extreme risk to public safety. But even if DeShawn somehow manages to come up with that money, his freedom comes with severe restrictions. He's ordered to wear a steel-cuff GPS tether, not the standard electronic monitoring that some defendants get, but a steel cuff that can't be removed or tampered with. The court wants to know exactly where he is every single second he's not in jail. The no-contact order with the victims isn't just about his wife. It includes her co-worker who witnessed the attack and helped save her life. DeShawn is legally prohibited from going anywhere near either woman, from contacting them directly or indirectly, from being within a certain distance of their homes, workplaces, or any location they frequent. The court is essentially creating a legal barrier between DeShawn and the people he tried to kill. Prosecutor Peter Lucido's statement following the arraignment reveals the prosecution's strategy and their commitment to this case. We will prosecute this case vigorously and pursue full accountability through the justice system, he says. That phrase, full accountability, is prosecutor speak for, we're going to throw the book at him. Lucido continues, our office is committed to protecting victims and ensuring those who commit such violent acts face the full force of the law. This isn't just legal boilerplate. This is a prosecutor making a public promise that DeShawn Flood will not get a plea deal that lets him walk away with minimal consequences. The next court hearing is scheduled for August 7th, and that date becomes crucial for everyone involved. For DeShawn, it's another step toward what could be decades in prison. For his wife, it's another day she has to relive the trauma of nearly being murdered by someone she trusted. For the legal system, it's an opportunity to send a message about how seriously they take domestic violence that escalates to attempted murder. But here's what really matters. The prosecution's approach tells us they believe they have a strong case, that the evidence against DeShawn is overwhelming, and that they're confident they can secure a conviction. While DeShawn sits in jail awaiting trial, his wife begins the long, painful process of recovery. The physical wounds will heal. The doctors have confirmed that her injuries, while serious, are not life-threatening. But the psychological trauma of being hunted and shot by your own husband? That's damage that takes years to repair, if it ever fully heals at all. She has to process the fact that the person who knew her most intimately used that knowledge to try to kill her. Every routine they shared, every moment of vulnerability, every piece of trust she gave him, all of it was turned into a weapon against her. The man who once promised to love and protect her became the greatest threat to her existence. Her co-worker, too, is dealing with trauma. She didn't ask to become a hero, didn't sign up to witness an attempted murder, didn't expect that helping a colleague would mean risking her own life. Yet she stepped up when it mattered most, and her actions literally saved a life. The ripple effects of DeShawn's violence extend far beyond just his wife. Her patients at Michigan Rehab Services, her other co-workers, her family members, everyone who cared about her now has to live with the knowledge of how close they came to losing her forever. The DeShawn Flood case teaches us that the most dangerous moment in an abusive relationship often comes when the abuser discovers information that shatters their sense of control. DNA test revelations, evidence of infidelity, financial secrets, or family lies can trigger what psychologists call narcissistic rage, a complete psychological break that transforms hurt feelings into homicidal intent. If someone in your life becomes obsessed with genetic testing, ancestry research, or investigating your past, pay attention to their motivations and reactions. Warning signs of escalating domestic violence aren't always obvious bruises or screaming matches. Watch for partners who become increasingly controlling about your schedule, who show up unexpectedly at your workplace, who ask detailed questions about your daily routines. DeShawn knew exactly when and where to find his wife because he had been studying her patterns. If your partner starts monitoring your movements more closely, questioning your whereabouts obsessively, or showing unusual interest in your work schedule, these could be signs they're planning something dangerous. The psychology of betrayal-triggered violence is particularly deadly because it gives abusers a sense of moral justification for their actions. In DeShawn's mind, whatever that DNA test revealed made his wife deserving of death. This twisted logic allows perpetrators to plan methodically rather than act impulsively, making their attacks more calculated and more likely to succeed. When someone feels betrayed, they often believe that extreme retaliation is not only acceptable but necessary. Workplace safety protocols become crucial when domestic violence follows victims to their jobs. DeShawn chose his wife's workplace specifically because he knew her routine there. If you're concerned about a coworker's safety, learn your company's procedures for handling domestic violence situations. Know where the panic buttons are, understand how to contact security quickly, and never hesitate to call 911 if you witness threatening behavior. The coworker who helped save DeShawn's wife didn't have special training. She just refused to abandon someone in danger. For victims of intimate partner violence, the most dangerous time is often when you're trying to leave or when your abuser discovers information that threatens their control. If you're planning to leave an abusive relationship, don't do it alone. Contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 for safety planning assistance. They can help you create an escape plan that minimizes your risk during the most vulnerable period. Bystanders and coworkers play a crucial role in domestic violence prevention and response. If you notice someone becoming withdrawn, showing unexplained injuries, or seeming fearful of their partner, don't ignore those signs. You don't have to confront the abuser directly, but you can offer support to the victim and help them access resources. Sometimes just knowing that someone cares and is paying attention can give victims the courage to seek help. The legal system's response to the DeShawn flood case, the $1 million bond, the GPS monitoring, the multiple serious charges, shows that domestic violence is finally being treated with the seriousness it deserves. But legal consequences only matter if victims survive long enough for justice to be served. Prevention and early intervention are always better than prosecution after the fact. DNA testing companies should consider adding warnings about the potential psychological impact of unexpected results, especially regarding paternity or infidelity. While most people handle surprising genetic information maturely, for individuals with violent tendencies or poor impulse control, these revelations can become triggers for extreme behavior. If you're considering genetic testing and you're in a relationship with someone who has a history of violence or controlling behavior, think carefully about how they might react to unexpected results. Here's what I need from you right now. Share one safety tip in the comments that could literally save someone's life. Maybe it's a warning sign you've learned to recognize, a resource that helps you or someone you know, or a workplace protocol that actually works. Your knowledge could be the difference between someone recognizing danger in time and becoming another victim. But here's the reality. If you're not subscribed to this channel, you're choosing to stay disconnected from a community that shares life-saving information regularly. You're deciding that your convenience matters more than potentially helping someone recognize the warning signs before it's too late. Don't be the person who could have contributed crucial knowledge, but chose to stay silent instead.